Ayurveda is an ancient knowledge system that can be used as a roadmap to create a life that's enriching in every possible way. Health, vitality, and profound meaning. My name is Sandhya Gopalakrishnan, and I'm thrilled to present a 6-part series called Ayurvedic Dietetics. In this series, we learn about the powerful concept of food as medicine. You'll learn how to apply these principles in a simple and practical manner that's relevant to our modern lives. Before we dive in, be sure to watch my previous video on the philosophical and spiritual roots of Ayurveda by clicking on the link in the caption below this video. Let's get started. Welcome to Ayurvedic Dietetics, a comprehensive 6-part series that breaks down the fundamentals of the Ayurvedic approach to nutrition. In this very first session, we will start with the basic question: how does Ayurveda define health and disease? And how can you determine your state of health using the information that's always available to you, namely your body signals? The World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Now, when we talk about health, we use words like healthy diet, nutrition, mental health, exercise, fitness, etc. Now, these definitions and words are problematic because they are vague and imprecise. So what does wellness actually mean? What is a healthy diet? What is mental health? Is there a way to actually measure health? The biomedical system uses a few standard biomarkers that have evolved over the years to give us a very high-level picture of our health. When we go for our annual wellness check, for example, our healthcare action is usually driven by the status of these biomarkers, which are blood pressure, cholesterol, triglycerides, fasting blood glucose, etc. If any of these markers are outside the so-called normal range, then our doctor basically gives us some follow-up action. But if they are within some range, then our doctor tells us to relax and sends us home. Body mass index is another marker that is typically used to assess nutritional status. And you might be familiar with markers such as oxygen saturation levels, resting pulse rate, etc. Many of us know that these markers are not adequate indicators of well-being. In fact, quite far from it. Meaning, these could all be within the normal range and one could still feel quite miserable. Like, take my mom, for example. Her numbers are all within range. Her blood pressure is excellent. Her fasting glucose is fine. But unfortunately, she suffers from chronic pain. It's highly impractical and complex to map out a complete set of these biomarkers that we can use to reliably tell us about the state of our health. And even if we did, we wouldn't know what to do to bring them back to a so-called normal state. So we need to largely rely on self-awareness to gauge our well-being. But the problem is that well-being is a highly subjective term. Different people have wildly different tolerances for pain, discomfort, stress, hunger, and so on. And the problem with this subjective experience is that the subtle signs of distress that the body might be sending can be missed. So year after year, we go to our doctors for our annual wellness check, and everything comes looking great. But you say, "I feel terrible." And so begins the nightmare of the specialists. Wouldn't it be great to have a systematic system to assess our well-being? Not only assess, but provide practical guidelines on how we can take corrective action to bring our body back into a state of well-being. And thankfully, that's where Ayurveda shines. The beauty of Ayurveda is that it's a system that you can apply to gain control over your health. But like all good things, it's not easy. You see, health is kind of like climate change, but maybe on a shorter time scale. Short-term gains can lead to long-term disasters from which it can be very difficult to recover. It's easy to do the easy, convenient things like eating out of a package, not moving if you feel lazy, straying from our ethical values when it's uncomfortable to stick to them, stress our body with substances that give us temporary bliss, and so on. But health is a journey. We need to take steps every single day to support our bodies on this journey. Thankfully, Ayurveda provides a map for this journey. Before we dive into this map, let's quickly look at what Ayurveda is and what it isn't on a high level. Ayurveda is personal, it's a lifestyle, it's precise, it's practical, it's universal, and it's empowering. What do these mean? So at a high level, it's personal because it teaches you to understand yourself on a physical and emotional level. Ayurveda is not something that we practice only when we are sick or we have symptoms of disease. It's a set of habits and actions to develop and execute every single day, and hence it's a lifestyle. It's precise and practical because there are no academic definitions here, only clear steps and action. It's universal and timeless because it doesn't care what your geographic location is, which century you happen to be alive in, what's your age, etc. These principles can be adapted to live a great life no matter what circumstances you're in. And it's empowering because it teaches you to live a good life without getting attached to your body. This might sound a bit counterintuitive, but this is the greatest benefit of a sincere study of Ayurveda. So what is Ayurveda not? It's not a diet. Like many people think Ayurveda means you have to eat vegetarian food. It's not vegan or vegetarian. It isn't a religion. It isn't Indian food. It isn't treating symptoms. And it isn't taking a bunch of herbs like turmeric, ashwagandha, etc. Now let's do a deep dive on what is the meaning of wellness. Ayurveda defines health as homeostasis. What does it actually mean? Let's take a moment to appreciate how incredibly dynamic life is. We're constantly being subjected to things that stress the body. Seasonal changes, daily circadian rhythms, changes in nutrition quality, bad air quality, dynamic emotional states, aging, pathogens, and our own genes. Health is the ability of the body to remain calm in the face of these stressors. It's a constant adaptation to these stressors and bouncing back to equilibrium. Think of the body like a rubber band. The stressors stretch the rubber band, some more than others. If the rubber band is strong, it can bounce back to its initial state of elasticity. But keep stretching it too much and too long, and it's going to break. A body that is adapting well to these stressors is said to be in homeostasis. This begs the question, how can you tell how your body is adapting? So these are the signs to look out for to understand if you're in homeostasis. They are good appetite, digestion, bowel movements, good immunity, stamina, good sleep, sense organ function, peace of mind, and sexual function. You can pause this video right now and click on the link called Assess Your Wellness in the description box below this video. This is a simple test that will help you understand each of these indicators in greater detail and how to assess them for your own self. So go ahead and pause the video and take the test now. Okay, now finally, let's talk about disease. Broadly speaking, we can categorize diseases into three groups: internal, external, and psychological. Chronic diseases like diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, etc. are examples of internal diseases. External diseases are infectious diseases caused by bacteria and viruses, and these are what allopathy excels at treating. However, allopathy doesn't do so well in treating chronic and psychological diseases, and this is where Ayurveda shines. The key to managing chronic disease is prevention and not waiting to take action till some symptom shows up. Because when it comes to chronic diseases, it can take years or even decades before the imbalances or the stress that the body has been feeling manifests as a noticeable symptom. Ayurveda gives us multiple tools to prevent the onset of chronic disease. So let's look at them at a high level. There are 3 systematic routines in the Ayurvedic toolkit that can help prevent disease. These are daily routines that help us adapt to circadian rhythms and preserve our sense organ function. The second is seasonal routines, which help us adapt to changing seasons. Now, many of you might experience allergies or excessive distress when seasons are changing. And by understanding and adopting seasonal routines, you can help ease some of this discomfort. The third is living by an ethical code of conduct, which helps with psychological well-being. A major component of all of these 3 tools is food. Specifically, how to use food to adapt to the different changes that stress the body. And yes, there is a food component to having a healthy mind too. Some of you might have heard of the term sattvic food. We'll go into that in a later series. Now, we start talking about the details of food, the chemistry of food, what happens to food in our body, etc. And this is where the dietetics part actually begins. How does food work in the body? So we know that we eat food and it goes into our stomach and intestines, and then it gets converted, broadly speaking, into 2 things. One is good stuff, and the second is toxic waste. So the good stuff nourishes our body, and the toxic waste needs to be efficiently excreted out of the body. The first sign of disease is impaired digestion, and this shows up way before you start to see the onset of more obvious symptoms. So the next step is, how can we diagnose an optimal digestion and understand when our digestion might be suboptimal? There are 3 states of digestion that are considered suboptimal. The first is irregular, which is accompanied by symptoms like variable appetite and hunger. So, for example, some days you might feel like you can eat enough food for 2 people, but some other days you might not feel like eating any meals at all. It's also accompanied by symptoms such as gas, bloating, constipation, cramps, and inability to put on weight, despite your best efforts. The second type of digestion, which is suboptimal, is acidic. And this is accompanied by symptoms such as heartburn, acid reflux, loose stools, sometimes several times a day, and inability to tolerate any hunger whatsoever. So all you hungry people out there, this is probably what you're suffering from. And the third is dull appetite, which is accompanied by a significant loss of appetite, feeling heavy and dull, having clumpy mucus-laced stools, and inability to lose weight despite having a very poor appetite. Food is the first step to restore balance, and it is through food that we can correct our digestion. If you were intrigued by what you saw, I encourage you to explore my website www.saroyanatural.com. Here you will find a bunch of long-form articles on Ayurveda, skincare, as well as multiple quizzes and assessments to understand your constitution, digestive state, and much, much more. Also, feel free to share this with others who might benefit from it. See you in part 2. Bye.